Hello, everyone. Kathy Rose here. I'm going to talk to you about the astrological patterns for December 2025. So, we begin looking at the Sagittarius mandala, and we're going to do a deep dive into understanding all the levels of Sagittarius and how it can manifest and how we respond to this energy because it plays a big part of the learning in December. So, let's look at the themes. We begin with something I think is really important in December, and that is to keep the frequency of grace first and foremost in your mind, front and center, tapping into it and letting it flow through you. Now, grace, I mention it frequently when I'm talking to clients, and people will say, well, how do you define grace? And I can't put it into words personally. I can show you on screen the image that you're seeing, the mandala that's on the left, is one that I created that I felt radiated the energy of grace to me. After I created it, I went, oh my gosh, that encapsulates the vibration of grace. It's still a very near and dear mandala to me. But I don't think I can put it into words except to say it goes beyond love. It's a higher frequency than forgiveness. It is such a fine vibration. Meditate on that this month. We have Saturn and Neptune making the last hurrah in Pisces. And the highest expression of that is going to be grace. So, more about that as we go through this forecast. The other thing that we can focus on for the theme of December is going to be rising above judgment, understanding what triggers us to be judgmental. Um, and instead of moving into that, rising higher. It's going to be a very important part of December. Part of that is learning to integrate and digest what Saturn and Neptune have been trying to teach us in Pisces. And part of that is this very strong Sagittarius challenge that is flowing through the month. The other thing is remain open to the creative flow as we move through December. You want to focus on the concept of learning how to be a conduit. That's what December is really all about, is fine-tuning your ability to be a conduit of grace so that you open and you become an open channel. It just flows through you, for grace and for creative energy, for lovingness. These are very important things coming about in December. All right, let's start with the full moon in Gemini, the first lunation of the month, which will be taking place December 4th, 6:14 p.m. Eastern Time. Anytime we have a lunation in Gemini, I like to focus on the fact that it's highlighting our need to look at the words we choose to say, how we communicate, the belief that's behind our words. It is the perfect time to be reshaping your mind and your beliefs and understanding this concept of the fact that everything you say is energizing a particular reality. And we all need to take responsibility for that. I think this new moon, full moon in Gemini is going to be a little bit of a preview for the upcoming major transit with Saturn moving, I'm sorry, with Uranus moving into Gemini in April of 2026. And when Uranus moves into Gemini, which is going to spend 7 years in that sign, we are going to have a wonderful electric flow of energy flowing through our mind, our beliefs, and this whole concept of helping to co-create our reality. So that's part of this full moon in Gemini. But the most important statement for this lunation is this Mars in Sagittarius squaring Saturn and Neptune. And it's not just Mars. Mars is the only planet squaring them, but it's going to be aided and abetted by Sun and Venus in Sagittarius. So the shadow side of Sagittarius is what we need to talk about because it can show up in challenging aspects like this. When Sagittarius is challenged or threatened or stressed, we can get righteous indignation. We can get very, very strong, opinionated thinking. And this can flow into judgment. This can flow into the current polarization we have, which is my way is the right way. And if you're doing it a different way, it means you're wrong. The whole right and wrong thing. Or my thinking is correct, your thinking is incorrect, or my team is the best team, your team is the worst team, that sort of thinking. And of course, that's the stressed side of Sagittarius, righteous indignation. You want to flow to the higher level, which I'm going to talk about more when we get deeper into this video. Let me just show you on the next slide a representation of how Mars square Saturn and Neptune could manifest. And here I chose this image purposefully. It's dramatic, isn't it? It's a big, snarling, growling, roaring bear. So sometimes when we have Mars-Saturn contact by either conjunction, square, or opposition, sometimes there's just rampant frustration because Mars wants to move quickly, Mars wants to charge forward, and Saturn wants to be cautious. So we have to get these two planets working together and talking to each other. Now, December 9th through 14th is when Mars square Saturn Neptune will be the strongest, but it really will be starting at the first of the month because you saw in the full moon in Gemini chart, if you know how to read a chart, you saw that was clearly already in operation. Let me say this. We can't control how other people are going to respond to this energy. You've heard me say that again and again. We can only control how we respond and how we choose to use this energy. I personally very much love Mars-Saturn contact, conjunct, square, or opposite. I look forward to it. And I plan on having super productivity during that time because if you use Mars-Saturn together harmoniously, then you get disciplined, focused productivity, disciplined, focused, motivational energy. And in this case with Neptune, it's going to add a whole lot of creativity and spiritual inspiration with it. So on the next slide is a new thought. Instead of the roaring bear, you could choose to focus this way instead, which says peace is not the absence of conflict, but it's the presence of creative alternatives for responding to conflict. And I think that so perfectly encapsulates the positive representation of Mars square Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces. So find those creative alternatives for responding to conflict. And if you are around people who are flowing into the roaring, snarling, growling bear, observe, observe. And instead of reacting, find a new way to respond instead, but rise above it like the dove that's in this picture. And I think that we can all meditate on this and have a new experience for the first half of the month, and even a little bit beyond the first half of the month. So in the middle of that Mars square Saturn Neptune, we are going to have Mercury entering Sagittarius, and this happens on December 11th. And it's just going to add to that whole Sagittarian energy. We have to remember that Mercury had a very long time in Scorpio. It entered Scorpio in October. It went into the early degrees of Sagittarius and then retrograded back into Scorpio. So now, December 11th, Mercury has completed the retrograde. It's going back into Sagittarius, and it's going to invite you to complete or have awareness or have breakthroughs for things that you probably were working on in October and November. That's the good news. But Mercury in Sagittarius, which will be from December 11th till about the end of the month, can also, though, engage us in these very strong opinions, the righteous indignation, and so forth. Can be kind of sanctimonious sometimes. So the image that's on screen here is the more elevated representation of Mercury in Sagittarius, which says, rise above and get the big picture view. This is the gift and the blessing from Sagittarius. That sign is very, very good at getting the big picture, getting the generalized overview. The opposite sign, which is Gemini, is very good at details. And also Virgo, breaking things into little parts, analyzing each tiny little detail together. But Sagittarius takes the big picture and tries to synthesize many parts. So, middle of the month, as Mercury's in Sagittarius, well, actually, for the whole month, if you tap into the higher level, you get freedom. You get this big picture awareness, which can be a multi year viewpoint as opposed to just right now it's uncomfortable. Maybe you look at it from a multi year or multi lifetime viewpoint. So keep that in mind and keep this image in mind. And then, middle of the month, December 15th, Mars will leave Sagittarius and enter Capricorn. And this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Please remember the sign in which Mars transits every month shows us the kind of background energy that's going to be all around us in how we take action. Mars in Capricorn is very, very, very effective. It's the executive Mars. It is very strategic, organized, productive. Mars in Capricorn until January 23rd is great for decision making, great for finding solutions, great for problem solving, and being incredibly efficient. So what's on screen says, don't be a prisoner of your past. It was just a lesson, not a life sentence. Well, that definitely symbolizes Mars in Capricorn kind of energy that says, let's just find a solution. Don't sit there and think about something that is stuck. Let's find a solution. Let's move it forward. Let's have a breakthrough. So it's nice that we're going to have Mars in Capricorn for a while. I suggest you use it and you jump in, which then brings us to the second lunation of the month, new moon in Sagittarius, December 19th, 8:43 p.m. Eastern Time. This new moon in Sagittarius says something very similar to the full moon in Gemini, which happened on December 4th, in that Neptune and Saturn are going to be squaring planets in Sagittarius. So it's saying the same thing. It's saying, how do we become loving, grace filled divine beings, filled with creativity, connected to the higher consciousness? And how do we navigate life, which is full of triggers? How do we do that? So it's quite possible. You see all those planets in Sagittarius during this lunation. It's nice that Mars is in Capricorn. It's actually going to help the situation. But it's quite possible you may be faced with some situations that trigger you to move into judgment, trigger you into very strong opinions, or support any belief you may have that good teams and bad teams, good approaches to politics, bad approaches to politics, inherently good people, inherently bad people. You may have some situations come up where you are asked to view it slightly differently. I'm not saying whatever view you have about religion or politics is bad or good. I'm just saying we're tightly polarized right now. And this Saturn-Neptune energy may want to bring some love into the situation and solve problems in a new way. It's going to be fascinating. So there is challenge in this lunation, but I think it's very positive challenge, and we can make a different response at any moment. And then that moves into the higher levels of Sagittarius, which is freedom, which is seeing the bigger view of where all of this is going. Remember, December is the last month for Saturn and Neptune. In January of 26, Neptune moves into Aries, and in February, Saturn does, and then they conjoin in February, and then they're launched into the Aries dynamic, which is very different. And let me explain. I have just recorded the big 2026 forecast video with my co-presenter. Her name is Agnes Belesne. Agnes is a very gifted and talented feng shui practitioner, master practitioner, and she's also a fabulous astrologer. And we have joined together for the forecast. We're going to be talking about the year of the fire horse. Isn't it interesting? 2026 is the year of the fire horse during the same year that Saturn and Neptune are making such a strong statement in the sign Aries, which is a fire sign. 2026 is all about action, action, action. And it's a very big shift from what we've been experiencing for several years. You can see that just from the graphic on this slide. Tune into that fire horse. You're going to want to understand the themes for 26, and that's what we talk about. The presentation ended up being 2 hours long. It was a lot of work, and it was very powerful for both of us. It's the kind of video that you're going to want to go back to several times in 26. Agnes is going to share the flying star concept in feng shui. So she will show the flying star energy for 26. And flying stars are like transiting energies in your homes, similar to the transiting planets that we talk about in astrology. You're going to find that so fascinating if you've never learned about flying stars. I learned so much just by talking to Agnes. So we're going to give you lots and lots of helpful information to navigate and understand the energies of 2026 to help you make your life better. We're going to be releasing the video on December 29th. So watch for it on my YouTube channel or on social media or in my newsletter. And I hope that you will watch it and that you get something helpful from it. So my final thoughts for December. Appreciate this blessed moment we have where we are needing to digest and assimilate and deeply understand the higher levels of Pisces, where we tap into love and blessings and grace, practice, being able on command to tune into the frequency of grace. Incredibly important that you can do that, to pay attention to your intuition, to be able to use your intuition on command. All of that is what's so important in December. And just being aware of what kind of earthly triggers happen. I mean, we are humans in this world. We are surrounded by a variety of frequencies, and challenge is often a very good thing. So we all have triggers. Pay attention to them, rise above them, take that higher view as much as you can. Be a conduit of grace and creativity and love to the very best of your ability. That's what December is really all about. Digest the wisdom from Pisces. So, as always, much love and many blessings being sent to you for December. And I look forward to talking to you about the deep lessons and opportunities that are going to show up for 2026. And I will see you next year. Bye for now.